As we start preparing for BIBA Conference 2024, we've been reflecting on everyone that attends and how, as an industry, we've embraced diversity, equality and inclusion. In this mini-series of the BIBA Pod, we'll recognise not only how far the insurance industry has come, but also what else we can do. Join us as we delve into our guests' valuable insights and stories. Good afternoon, Claire and Neil. I am so grateful to have you guys on today's recording for the BIBA Pod. We have a really interesting, really topical discussion, and I would just like to thank both of you for being here because I think it's going to be really, really interesting. I don't know if you just both like just to have a couple of minutes and introduce yourselves. Claire, would you like to go first?
Yep, I will. So my name's Claire Russell. I'm the founder of Mental Health in Business. We work with businesses to help them to create psychologically safe workplaces. My background is I was an insurance broker for more than 25 years. And so a lot of the work that we do is within the insurance industry, but all centres around helping organisational leaders to create safe and healthy places to work.
Wonderful. And I know some of the work you do, and I think it's fabulous.
Neil?
It
is actually. Hi, I'm Neil Jenkinson, Regional Manager for the North Regions here at BIBA, looking after the members and making sure everything's hunky-dory when it comes to knowledge of BIBA and what we get up to.
And a very important role, having worked with BIBA on a number of occasions. Really grateful to have you both on here. Today's podcast is really interesting and really topical, and we're talking broadly about hormonal imbalances in men and women in their 40s and 50s and how that affects their mental well-being. Now, there's been a lot of talk in the press about menopause and andropause, and there's been some sort of negativity around the andropause. And I think it's really important for us to have a conversation today about what the effects are, what each of these things are, and how we can help people who are struggling with their mental health. And perhaps there might be some other things going on that we can talk to. And I know, Neil, you've said that, you know, if one person gets something out of this podcast that's helpful, then we're winning. And I completely second that. So I wonder if we could start, Claire. I wonder if you can just give us an overall view of what the difference between menopause and andropause actually is.
Yes, I can. And I think for what I would firstly like to say is this. Look, you know, I'm coming at this conversation from a number of different angles, from the position of a perimenopausal woman that's dealing with the symptoms of menopause and perimenopause myself, from the position of somebody who has worked with and supported hundreds, if not thousands, over the years of men and women, but a lot of men particularly, who are experiencing problems with their mental health, particularly around the time of midlife. And also from the perspective of doing the work that we do in our organisation, which really centres around psychological safety at work in an industry that's really male dominated. So, you know, I've got a real interest in this subject. So the difference between the two, and I think it's important to take a bit of a more sort of overarching view really of this whole conversation, because, you know, we're all people, we're all humans, whether we are born biological men or biological women. You know, we're all humans and we all have an endocrine system that creates hormones, and those hormones are responsible for pretty much every function that happens in the body and mind. And all of us, whether we are biologically male or biologically female, all of us will go through changes throughout our lives during puberty, all of us, during pregnancy and childbirth for biological women, during midlife for both women and men. So I think it's important that we have that overarching view and we understand that hormones affect all of us in different ways and at different points in our lives. So there has been a lot of talk around menopause, and it's super important that there has. Menopause will affect every biological woman. Fact, every woman will go through menopause. The effects of menopause will differ very significantly from one woman to the next. But I don't know any women that have got through menopause with no symptoms. I know some that have got through it with few symptoms, but I don't know any that have gone through it with none. So it will affect all women in some way. And those effects are emotional, psychological, and physical. And it's imperative that within the workplace we understand that and that we're able to support people effectively through that time in their life. Because otherwise, what we have is huge swathes of women leaving the workforce during that point in their lives. So what is andropause and how is it different? So, you know, you referred, Sarah, to some of the press coverage that andropause has had recently. I think a lot of the negativity surrounding that possibly comes down to language and terminology, because you hear people talking about male menopause, and that gets people's backs up a little bit, I think, because of course men don't go through menopause. Men don't menstruate, and therefore there isn't an end to menstruation. Of course there isn't. But what is very clear, and there's huge amounts of research and emerging evidence, that lots of men, when they enter midlife, experience a change in hormones. So, and for some men, that's a very significant drop, particularly in testosterone. And that change can lead to all sorts of symptoms that are psychological, emotional, and physical. And the issue is that there's a lack of awareness around that, you know, and we have many, many men. We don't know how many because the research is so new. We don't know what percentage of men might experience this, but we do know that some do. We don't know why some do and some don't. But there are emerging schools of thought that there are certain risk factors that might make some people more at risk, lifestyle factors and that kind of thing. But what we do know is a lot of men will experience it. And when they do, they will experience a range of cognitive, behavioural, psychological, emotional and physical symptoms. And some of those are devastating. And if they don't know what's potentially at the root of that, what they're experiencing, then all they will ever be doing is sticking a sticking plaster on the symptoms. So, you know, if somebody is struggling with all of those kind of things and they don't know that what's at the root of it potentially is hormonal, then all they're going to do is treat the symptoms. For example, a symptom might be depression. But if we're treating the symptom with antidepressants and not the root cause with hormones, then they're not going to get well.
I think it is so incredibly important to have this conversation. I'm not sure of the exact stats, and I'm sure you'll be able to enlighten me, but isn't one of the biggest suicide groups of people men in their midlife?
Absolutely. So 76% of deaths by suicide are men. Now, men aged 20 to 50 are more likely to die by suicide than any other cause. And we see a huge spike in that age bracket, 40 to 49. You know, why is that?
And we talk a lot in the press and in the world, actually, mental health is really being brought up. And when you can find things behind depression, anxiety, weight gain, sleeplessness, that actually can be a physiological thing that you can maybe get some support for, then, you know, if somebody can get that tiny bit of support that gives a bit of help, then this is worth it. Neil, I wonder if you could talk us through your experience in this field.
Yeah, sure, Sarah. I think, obviously I want to tread quite carefully and be respectful for everything that we're talking about. I think the only thing that changed in me, I've been married for 30 years next year. So my wife has been with me for 33 years. And about 3 years ago, she said, "You're changing." And I just put that down to me being in my mid-50s and putting a bit of weight on and getting a bit lethargic. And she said, "Mate, you've lost your mojo." I was like, okay, well, I don't feel like that. But then inside, I wasn't able to communicate the fact that I was feeling a little bit flatter, with an L, F-L, flatter, not fatter, but flatter. And I think I was given a list of symptoms of the andropause. And I'll just, if you don't mind, Sarah, I'll just throw one or two at you. So it probably opens up
Yes,
the
please.
conversation a little bit. It was mood swings and being irritable, reduced ability to exercise, putting on weight, a lack of energy, really struggling with sleep and getting the hot sweats and waking up sort of through the middle of the night, and having a brain fog. And those were all boxes that were being ticked without me really knowing. Just sort of being the man, and I put the game face on when I go to work and try and be as great as I can be at my job and everything else. But then deep down you're thinking, okay, that does kind of make sense a little bit. So when Nicola, my wife, said, "Would you please go and get yourself checked out?" I kind of pushed her back 3, 4, 5 times, and it just continued to happen to me. And then I thought, I've got to take the step. I have to try and just at least see if it is just me and my age and the fact that I am carrying weight, or is there something else wrong with me? It's not wrong with me, but is my body working slightly differently to where it should be? And that's when I went for a private blood test. And from those tests, 2 of the 3 that they, if you like, measured, one was progesterone. Progesterone, is that how I pronounce that? I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
so
right.
there was an optimal reading, however this company read it, of about 3 to 7 for a man of my age. And mine was undetectable. I had hardly anything. And my testosterone, where the range should have been 20 to 30, mine was at 3.7. So basically the way they explained it to me was that my body is trying to manage itself because I haven't got the, if you like, the fuel to do things properly. So that's why your body reacts to things differently. And I just didn't know, Sarah. I didn't even think it was, in these modern terms, a thing, really. So I started the treatment. And listen, there's a heck of a journey. I don't even know I'll get to the end of it, but I feel better. And it's great that I'm able just to speak and maybe just put this into, obviously, this podcast today. And if there's 1 or 2 people out there who listen and think, goodness me, maybe it's worth me just going to the doctors or going somewhere privately just to get checked out, I would push them all day long, because it just needs talking about. It needs, the whole thing around menopause and everything else, male, deficiencies in their levels, etc. I get quite emotional sometimes talking about it, but it's nice to be able to sort of spread the message, really.
Do you know, I felt goosebumps when you said, I feel better, because that, I mean, there was detectable feeling in that. I felt it coming through. And I mean, if I'm thinking from my perspective, Claire, I'm in the perimenopausal fun life at the moment. So when you have fundamental hormones in your body that are not at the levels they should be, the impact that has, and you've mentioned, Neil, as have you, Claire, on everything. Everything. You have an iron deficiency, you go to the doctors, they give you iron. Why are hormone deficiencies not discussed on the same kind of level as nutrient deficiencies? You've mentioned a few symptoms from the andropause. Some resonate very much with me in my knowledge of menopause symptoms. Tell me a little bit about how the 2 share symptoms, and maybe why. Are there any kind of schools of thought? Is it the midlife hormonal changes? What's happening there?
Yeah, I mean there are a lot of similarities, and it's also important that we recognise that every person will experience this period of time in their life in their own unique way, because there are other lifestyle factors at play as well. And, there'll be all sorts like, general overall physical health, exercise, weight, nutrition, self-care, sleep habits, all of those things will play into it. And, people need to understand the things that can have a detrimental effect and the things that can have a positive effect and can actually support people through that period of time. For some people, so I mean, we deliver menopause training in our business, and I'm part of the menopause experts group. So this is very much a hot topic for me. People will experience, those kind of symptoms and a whole range of symptoms, and they will change as well, throughout the whole process. they will change. And there's all different biological and environmental factors that will also feed in to those symptoms. And for some people, hormone treatment is absolutely necessary. And for some people, it's not. Or for some people, it's not the only answer. And so it's important that people are armed with the information. They know what they're looking for. They're able to go and get checked out, get some tests done, know where they're at, and that they're then able to make an informed decision about what's right for them. And that might be hormone treatment. It might be naturopathic remedies. It might be lifestyle changes. It might be a combination of all of those things. But until people have the awareness and understand what it is that they are experiencing, they don't know to do any of those things.
Sometimes knowledge is the thing you need. My sort of feelings are often, what's wrong with me? Oh my goodness, I can't do this. Why am I so tired? Maybe there's something really bad like cancer. Maybe actually it's all in my head and I'm crazy. And those kind of thoughts are so negative in themselves. Just to be able to go, oh, I know what this is.
Sorry, for me, I think there was a very noticeable period of, Claire and I go way back. We've known each other for 20 plus years in the insurance industry. And I've never been slim. I've never been a 4-stone guy or whatever it would be. But over the last few years, I've struggled. I'm quite up and down with my weight. Have a go, lose weight, feel great, put it back on again. But over the last couple of years, I've really struggled to find the motivation to get out there and do it. And that was the difference. That was I suppose that was the trigger when my Nicola upstairs was sort of saying to me, Neil, there's something wrong, mate. There really is something wrong with you. Oh, babe, I'm all right. I'm just overweight and I'm mid-50s. I'm fine. And there wasn't. It actually was my body slowing me down because I haven't got the fuel, if you like, to sort of get myself up and running again. So the treatment that I'm on is a lotion, which you sort of rub in every day. And that boosts naturally. Claire, I'm presuming I'm talking right, naturally boosts the levels. And I get checked every 6 months. And the numbers are nowhere near optimal, but they are rising all the time. So I think what I'm saying in myself, I'm feeling a lot brighter. I feel I can take the day on a lot easier because there are struggles. Everybody has struggles in the morning, getting up and putting the game face on and going to work. Sometimes you really just don't feel like doing it, but you do it. Because you're a professional and you get on with your job and you get on with your life and you get on with your family life as well. So I think it's been a huge benefit for me on this journey, which is nowhere near the end of it. But I do think that there were signs there, but I just didn't want to acknowledge them at the same time. You know what I mean? I'm sort of hiding behind it.
It's an incredibly, incredibly powerful story, Neil. And you can see the emotion and the feeling. And the kind of game face struggling to come out there, like you can see it, and I think a lot of people will resonate with it. I certainly do. I think it's really, really powerful. You've touched on sort of how you feel inside. Claire, can you talk a little bit more about the impact of these hormonal changes and imbalances on the mental health for both men and women, for people, for humans?
Yeah, I mean, again, it varies wildly from one person to the next. But, what we absolutely know for certain is those hormones are responsible for pretty much every function in the body. There is that inextricable link between our psychological health, emotional health, and physical health. And so, people will experience different things. For some people, it will present like depression, symptoms that are similar to depression. For some people, it will present like anxiety, so symptoms that are similar to the symptoms that people experience with anxiety disorders. And, if they go and see somebody and they're talking about those kind of anxiety type symptoms or depressive symptoms, and it isn't picked up that what's at the root of it is hormonal, then they're not going to get the right help and support, because you really just, you're just dealing with what's on the surface rather than what's at the root of it.
Is there a link? And again, both in menopause and andropause, I don't think the research is old or anywhere near where it needs to be. But is there a link about exacerbating pre-existing coping strategies. So, for example, I am quite an anxious person generally. I do 500 things at once and then get overwhelmed very easily about it. In times of acute stress, those coping strategies become bigger. In times of hormonal imbalance, is that my go-to? Do you see what I mean? So if you've already got a pre-existing, Neil's mentioned weight up and down, I'm very similar. My weight is a problem at the moment, and it's a pre-existing thing that gets worse perhaps with hormones. Is there any kind of research around that? And I'm just going to tell you why I'm asking. I was told after I had a stroke last year that your sort of existing personality gets more for a short period of time afterwards, and I certainly recognised some of those things.
Sure. Look, I don't know if the evidence, if there is adequate evidence out there to answer that question from a place of real authority, but certainly, what I can say is in my anecdotal experience, I've been in contact with, over the last 10 years, I've been in contact with thousands of people in hundreds of different organisations, and my anecdotal experience tells me that yes, when people are going through midlife, if there is a predisposition to depressive symptoms or anxiety symptoms, or problems managing weight or insomnia, then those symptoms tend to be exacerbated during this midlife time.
So I think that's really, really important, because people going to the doctors, if they have a predisposition to depression or insomnia, they may have been before and been given antidepressants, or so it's back, but it's worse. Can you help me again? And I think there is a huge group of people that will fit to. So I think those people that are thinking, actually, this is back and it's getting worse and I'm now lacking the mojo to deal with it, go and speak to somebody. Just check it out.
Well, I've had that exact conversation about myself over the last 12 months, because, yes, I have a history of depression and anxiety, and I've noticed sort of different symptoms that could be sort of categorised within those two conditions over the last 12 months. And I've been to see my doctor. I first went about a year ago, and I said, I think it's perimenopause. And he said, it's not. You're too young. And I was 43 at the time. And I was like, well, of course I'm not too young. Of course I'm not. And I would like you to refer me to somebody, because I'd like to check this out. I'd like to know what I'm dealing with so that I can make the right choices for myself. And so that's part of the problem, is that, we're not necessarily heard, and so my sort of, I'm the last person to sort of spread a doomsday message about anything to do with mental health and well-being. The purpose in me sharing that is to say, look, be heard, right? If you go and you feel dismissed, then push harder, see somebody else, have a conversation with somebody different, because the help is there and we all deserve it. We all have a right to experience good health and good mental well-being. And if we're not, then we need to explore why that is.
And what exactly are you asking for? So, Neil, you went to a private company and said, I would like my hormones testing. Give me a blood test that tests specifically progesterone and testosterone. I presume I also have had a perimenopause test, but they told me that it can't tell you anything. And I kind of left and thought, oh, I don't really understand what that means, and carried on with my life. So what exactly are you asking for if you are a woman and facing menopause, perimenopause? What are you asking them to test?
Yeah, so it's a little bit challenging with perimenopause, because the hormone levels that they are looking at will fluctuate through your cycle, and so they really need to do the test on, I think it's the third day of your cycle, and then repeat it every month. And I think that's right, on the same day. So if that doesn't happen, then you're not going to get a picture as to what's going on in your body. And that's why I had the same thing. I was totally dismissed. It's a complete waste of time. because we have to measure it at the exact same point in order to get that picture as to what's going on within the body.
And I can imagine people listening, there will be a lot in their midlife, men and women, going, I've been feeling a lot tireder and really struggling. And I went and asked if there was anything wrong with me, and I was given antidepressants. And I'm not, there will be so many people listening that this resonates with. And if you are listening and you feel able to share that story with us, even anonymously, please do get in touch. We'll make sure there's details in the show notes, because the more people talking, the more powerful this becomes. And at the end of the day, we're all people and we're all trying to help each other. We're just trying to get through to the next day in a way that we can be living.
I think the one thing from my point of view, and I think I said it when I was explaining my situation, I never thought about going to the doctors the way I felt. I'll be honest, I was just putting up with it. And because of, she who must be obeyed upstairs, then they said, come on, mate, this isn't you. She had already started using this company I went to, and I'm very fortunate to be in a position to pay for it. So I went for it, and thankfully I found out. But without that, and I don't want to obviously be rude in anybody's circumstances, but I didn't even know it was a thing. I've obviously appreciated my wife's gone through the menopause as well, and I've seen how she's.
Can I ask, Neil, was your wife using the company for her own sort of
recently,
hormonal?
I mean, Nicola started on the menopause at 37,
Okay.
so she was 37 years old when she started her menopause journey. So we've just celebrated her 53rd, and about 2 years ago, she joined this company to start the treatment, and maybe 18 months, something like that. And she's found how much the results are much better for her. I wouldn't even dream of starting to tell you how she's feeling, because that's, as you've quite correctly explained, guys. It's everybody's own journey on their own. But for us to talk about it and just to share the experiences and everything else that's going on, then I'm delighted just that we've been able to have the chat, really.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think the message is, we don't and we shouldn't normalise not feeling well. We shouldn't normalise not feeling okay. And whether that's emotional, psychological or physical, we shouldn't normalise that. And I think to some extent a lot of us do, and particularly when we get to kind of midlife and we're in this kind of, phase of our lives where perhaps we're still responsible for kids, and maybe we've got caring responsibilities for parents or grandparents or other family members, and perhaps it's quite a stressful time of life anyway in all sorts of ways. And so I think a lot of us normalise not feeling okay, and just put it down to life, and actually it's not. We don't have to feel that way, and there is help available. Some of us will be able to access that privately, great. Some of us may be able to access that through things like employee assistance programs, possibly, or private health insurance through employers. And there's help available through the NHS. And push for what you need. Go and see a doctor. Ask to be referred to a specialist. And don't take no for an answer, frankly, because your health is the most important thing.
I mean, that was.
Yeah, don't take no for an answer.
That's to be honest, I'm in this situation today because my wife didn't with me. She kept pushing me. There is something wrong with you, mate. And I was like, yeah, I know, but I don't want to face up to it. I really don't want to go there, babe. I just want to feel myself again. And she said, well, go and find out whether it is your age and the fact that you're 4 or 5 stone overweight, whatever it may be. And then we found out it wasn't just that. So yeah, I would just urge people just to reach out, keep pushing, get the result you want to wherever you want to go to. If anybody ever wants to speak to me, please, obviously I'm available as well. So
that's incredible. Absolutely incredible from both of you. I've learnt a lot today. One thing that I like to ask you, just to kind of wrap up, what would you like to see in the workplace supporting menopause and andropause? I know we've moved forward on the menopause and we've got a long way to go. the dial starting to move maybe on the andropause? I don't know. What would you like to see, and how do we get there?
Do you want to say that first, Claire? Yeah,
Shall I
please.
start? Yeah. So, look, we need to increase awareness. We need to share this information with everyone so that people can then make the right choices for themselves and can also perhaps understand what they're experiencing and can also support those that they love and care about and work with. We need to, at an organisational level, we need to have the right policies and processes in place to support people appropriately when they are going through these experiences. We need to train managers and leaders so that they're able to manage people effectively in the right way when they are going through these kind of experiences. And we need to be making resources available, which most organisations are now. Even smaller organisations are making resources like things like mental health first aiders and employee assistance programs, and some companies will have private medical insurance and all those kind of things. We need to be providing those kinds of resources that people can tap into to get the help and support that they need. And honestly, there's a damn good business case for doing that, right? Because if we support people within the workplace, they are happier and healthier and more productive and more likely to stay with our organisations too.
Yeah, I would agree.
Brilliantly
I would
said.
agree. I think obviously everything the experts said, Sarah. I think that obviously we'll bow to Claire's knowledge. But I think the one thing for me was just awareness. I've spoken to a couple of friends about this, made them aware, shared my information. But then I've also told them that I'm coming on to a podcast and telling everybody that my body doesn't work properly. And they're like, Yankee, really? Are you that? What are you doing? So I just want to tell people. And obviously everything works fine. I want to get rid of that, just in case everything works okay. But there are just, thank you very much. But there are just deficiencies in my body, which kind of goes, yeah, you need some help with that. So when I spoke to the first chap I spoke to, he's a close friend of the family, and he's a big lad as well, and he went, "Wow, Jenks, you've just named exactly how I'm feeling." Sent him the stuff across. He's had the same thing, and he's gone on the same treatment. So it's just, yeah, for me, Sarah. Obviously, Claire's brilliant at what she does, and it's all about awareness. For me, that's it. If I've helped somebody today just to think slightly differently, then I'm absolutely made up, because I've put myself out there for this today, and I think it was the right thing to do, because it's not a spoken about subject. The lady, the women's and the menopause and everything else, it is. And goodness me, I would never even contemplate on talking any further because I don't know about it. But this I'm going through, and I just felt it needed just saying and sharing, really.
I think it's really important to acknowledge that by talking about this, we're not detracting from the experience of another group of people, By talking about men in midlife, we're not detracting from the experience that women have when they go through menopause. We're all people, we all exist alongside one another in our lives, in work and outside of work. And it's just about us all understanding each other and ourselves better, isn't it? And I don't think that you should underestimate how powerful it is, Neil, that you are talking about your experience, because it gives permission to others to do that.
I hope so.
It will definitely. I know that there will be a lot of men that will be impacted by this conversation because you're giving permission for them. And it's a super
There's
great
a joking
thing to do.
thing, which is actually actually not, or being treated for what I'm going through. The midlife crisis has slowed down slightly, so I don't have to go and buy myself a really expensive sports car. And that's quite good as well.
So there's a business case for this as well.
Absolutely.
Do you know what, Neil? I genuinely cannot thank you enough, because I think, generally speaking, women find it easier to talk than men do about, what's going on inside. And it is so important and so powerful to hear you talking about your experience. And I echo Claire's sentiments in how brave I think it is, but how much you are giving permission to a very large section of the society.
Let's
So
hope
thank you both
Thank
of you. I'm really, really grateful.
Super. Thank you.
Thank you. It's great to be part of the conversation. Thank you.